I mean, by no means I had teammates with Olympians, so by no means am I the best fencer on the team, but they noticed that I had the capability and they were willing to work with me to help me improve on my fencing. And I was very lucky and fortunate to experience the same thing with Harvard, where you just have these amazing buildings filled with history, like rich history, and just it filled me with a sense of awe. There is a little bit of imposter syndrome that comes. I feel like most students have kind of experienced that, where we don't really know if we deserve to be in a special place as Harvard.
Have you had an experience where you let your team down, or you feel you let your team down, and maybe someone comes down on you quite hard and you feel even worse? And how do you balance that off?
So yes, to answer your question, there were a few times where I did feel like I let my team down. I'm able to...
Did they, just to interject,
yeah.
Did they stop you and go, what was that?
Yes, no, they do sometimes. And I've gotten a few questions of how I train at Harvard.
What's the biggest lesson you learned from spending a year so far at Harvard? Hello everyone, I am Coach Ognian and you're watching Athlete Support. Today's very special guest is Alexander Tafur. Alex is a Harvard fencer. Hi Alex, how are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. You, Ognian.
Excellent. Alex, this is our second chat. First chat we had last year, just before you went to Harvard to study there. Will you please tell us how the whole thing happened as you arrived, and did you know at that point that you're going to be part of the Harvard team? Did you have a chat with the coach? How was it decided that you will be part of the Harvard fencing team?
Sure, okay, so when I did get accepted, this was around last year, March, the coach did email me and she did reach out to me and ask, am I interested in joining the team? And obviously I want to join the team. I want to continue fencing. So I said yes, very enthusiastically. And she said, no problem, we'll see if you're a fit, just you obviously attend the first few practices and see how it goes, kind of thing. So then everything was fine. I got my accreditation with the National Collegiate Athletics Association in America. I had that sorted. So when I arrived, all I really had to do was just attend the first few practices and see how it went. I met up with all my teammates, all the new freshmen, new first years with me as well, and I immediately kind of fell in love with the team. And after the first few practices, it was clear to me that I was going to be very dedicated. I wanted to commit to it. It was a very large time commitment, but it was something that I wanted to do. And fortunately for me, the coaches, they saw how I fenced, and I mean, by no means I had teammates with Olympians, so by no means am I the best fencer on the team, but they noticed that I had the capability and they were willing to work with me to help me improve on my fencing. So yeah, I joined the team after a few weeks, and since then I've been a regular member since then. Just
to step back from your fencing and look at it from the perspective of a student who's at Harvard to also study, and you arrive at Harvard, you look at the buildings, the gardens, the exterior, the interior, and what is the experience arriving there and absorbing all of this? What is the impression that you have?
Sure. Well, so when I first arrived in America, it was around the middle of August, and I was very fortunate to have had my sister with me at the time, my older sister, and it was both of our first times in America. So that was the first memorable experience that I remember, where it was just a new country, new culture, and I wouldn't say I was overwhelmed. I would say the right word is I was excited, because I was seeing this new community, new society where I could tell there were a lot of opportunities waiting for me, and that was just really exciting. And I love interacting with new cultures. As someone who comes from, my parents come from two different cultures. I'm a first generation South African, so I appreciate having those, experiencing and integrating into new cultures. So yeah, I spent a week in Boston with my sister and in the Cambridge area as well, just experiencing the place, understanding where I was in the world really, before I entered the Harvard campus. But when I did enter the Harvard campus for the first time, I just remember I was just filled with awe. Architecture, the look of the place means a lot to me. I was at St. John's College in my high school years, and one of my favorite things to do in that school is because it's so beautiful and it's this wonderful school like on a hill, and everyone says that compares it to Hogwarts. My favorite thing to do was just to walk around and experience the place. And I felt the same thing at Harvard, where I was surrounded by history and just seeing these beautifully crafted buildings. Like I knew I was going to a place of excellence and importance in the world. So that was really inspiring, I would say. And then obviously my next big experience was just interacting with my new classmates. I felt that I was quite fortunate to have been accepted into Harvard. Some might say lucky, and with that there is a little bit of imposter syndrome that comes. I feel like most students at Harvard kind of experience that, where we don't really know if we deserve to be in a special place as Harvard. But so when I was interacting with my new classmates, there was a fear that I was going to be intimidated and just overwhelmed by like these people with an excellent background behind them. And so it was really awesome for me when I was able to just interact with them, and they really just were normal people. Like these were normal guys, and we had regular conversations, and it was amazing. I was like talking to someone that I had known for a few years, and so I made some friends quite quickly. Especially I was with a lot of international students as well. We were going through the same process. So with things like that, it was, I felt like I had found a place and belonging quite quickly at Harvard, which I think was really great.
Integrating. And how quickly did you integrate, or did you, with the Harvard fencing team? Are the guys, do you feel like they're part of a family, or do you feel it's very individual? And how's it come across to you at first?
Sure. So I would say the thing that makes the Harvard fencing team one of the most, if not the most special fencing teams in the US, it's the fact that we are so close with each other and that we are a family. And in the sense that, we might not always be each other's best friends, but we will always have each other's backs, and we're always looking out for each other and making sure that we're all in a good space, and we do what we can for each other to support each other on and off the piste, inside and outside of the training hall. And so that was the first thing I noticed immediately when I met my new teammates for the first time. Some of the older some of my older teammates, we call them upperclassmen, they were there just to make sure that us, the freshmen, the first years, that we were welcomed in, that we felt like we had people that we could come to and talk to if we were struggling with something. And so that was great. And I think that's, having been in enough competitions now with the team and looking at other team dynamics, fencing is an individual sport, so it's completely understandable when you have other teams that have a bit more that individual mindset, where they're individual, they kind of keep to themselves, and then they just work together when they do have to fence together. But the Harvard fencing team doesn't work like that. We are a team where we are together. What's
the difference or similarity between Harvard fencing team and doing club fencing here in South Africa, and what are your likes and dislikes and preferences?
Sure. Okay, so I would say, I think this is just the nature of intercollegiate, intervarsity fencing in the US. Being part of the Harvard fencing team, it is at the end of the day a team effort. We're trying to win championships together. We're trying to go into every competition as a team together. Every win is tallied with all the rest. So we all have to kind of work together in order to have that overall win. So it's very much a team thing. And we, in training, we all do the same exercises. We do the same training programs. So it's very much a team team-based experience. But then in South African club fencing, while I have a very good relationships with all my club teammates and I'm good friends with most of them, it is an individual thing. When we go to training, we get our individual lessons. When we fence each other, we're trying to work on our own things. We're trying to get better ourselves, so that when we go to the next provincial, the next national, next international competition, we're trying to do the best that we ourselves can as individuals. So I would say South African club fencing is definitely a bit more you're trying to get better as an individual, whilst being surrounded by these brilliant friendly people. I would say, at least in my club, I had really good relationships with my teammates. But then again, when we do go to competitions, we are there to support each other. Obviously, our goal is to do the best that we can. We've got our own events, we've got our own achievements that we want to get. But we will support each other. When someone doesn't have a coach by their side, we'll rush over there. If someone needs some cheering, we'll go cheer for them. So that there is obviously a team element. But I would say, just because at Harvard, the Harvard fencing team, our overall goal is to work as a team and achieve a trophy, a championship as a team. That's the difference. In terms of the pros and cons, it's difficult, because on one hand, it's really nice to have the support of being in a team, to know that we're working together and that you have support from all over. But then unfortunately, this is a mindset thing, but there is always the kind of thing, I have that thing of oh, I'm part of a team now, so I have responsibility to my team, so I can't let them down. And that does, I won't lie, that did affect me in some competitions. I think it affects every fencer somewhere down the line in those kinds of competitions, where the pressure is not about the fact that you're going to lose, it's the fact that you're letting your team down. When you have all that support, cheering, and then all that cheering behind you, you don't want to let your teammates down, because at the end of the day, if you don't perform, then you could be stopping your teammates, even if they could have performed brilliantly. But if you don't perform, then you might be the reason why you don't win the trophy at the end of the day. However, while speaking to a teammate of mine at Harvard, I can tell she had a lot more experience, and she just told me that it's not so much a thing to think of as a burden. It's a privilege, and it's an honor to have that responsibility, to be trusted in your teammates. And so it's about shifting that mindset, which I'm still working on, but I would say towards the end I got slightly better at it. So every competition felt a little bit less stressful. And then from the club side, like in South Africa, the individual thing, yes, you don't really have to feel like you're a burden on anyone else, which is nice. That will never happen, because you're just focused on yourself and your own performance. But that can sometimes get a bit lonely, and that's just the nature of it. So there's always two sides to every coin. So there were a few times where it does feel a bit lonely, and you feel like maybe if we did have a bit more support as a team and work together as a team to achieve something, then we might all individually be benefited by that. So yeah, there is a pro and con to everything.
Have you had an experience where you let your team down, or you feel you let your team down, and maybe someone comes down on you quite hard and you feel even worse? And how do you balance that off if you've been in these kind of situations? Because it's tricky.
Yeah.
On one hand, you don't want to berate someone. On the other hand, you might want to go and say, team is suffering. How do you guys balance that off? Because obviously it's a subject that will come up.
So I think it requires two things. You need to have a level of understanding of, you need to know your teammates well enough to know what their regular best performance is, what you can expect from them, so that you know when you have to hold them accountable. So yes, to answer your question, there were a few times where I did feel like I let my team down. There were a few bouts that I had to fence where I wasn't in my right headspace. I was doing the wrong things, wasn't listening to my coaches properly. I let my nerves and my anxiety get in the way, and so yes, I did feel like I let my team down. And yeah, it's an emotion-filled sport space. So there were a few times where sometimes teammates will say something like you should have done this, or you should have done that. But if you just kind of understand that it's not coming from a place of trying to put you down, but it's a place from like, we know that you're better than this. We know that you can do better than this. So it's time that we need to just hold you accountable, so that next time, like you can grow from the experience. If that makes sense. So yes, so it's that kind of thing, and yeah, I would say there were a few times where I also felt like, I'm not the best fencer on the team, and there were a few times where I'd see these brilliant fencers, and I know how good they are. Like they've been to like some of my teammates, they have been to the Olympics, or they've gone to World Championships and they've gotten medals. And then sometimes, they lose bouts that they know themselves they should not have lost. Mm. And what's just important is like not to put them down. The same way they don't put me down when I fail, or when I don't do something I was supposed to do. It's just trying to understand how it happened, so that we can prevent it for next time.
Analyzing and then making a strategy from there.
Exactly.
Because you're South African, and there are a lot of, from what I understand, team is comprised mostly of American fencers. They have a very different fencing style to what we have here. And there is obviously both an opportunity to learn their style, but it takes time to integrate and implement. So how do you balance that off? Does it create confusion? Do you go like, that's like now, yes, I'm excited, I'm learning new things, I'm fencing against top fencers in America, who are Olympians as well, so that's the good part, but now I'm also learning a whole new style, and it takes time to process and implement. How well are you coping with that? Are you managing to implement the new style? What are your thoughts on that?
So definitely, like what you said, there is different fencing style, different priorities of what you train. So I would say when I first came to America and I started working with the new Harvard coaches, they were very eager to work with me. I was very eager to work with them because I knew they had something new and different to offer me, and that they could really help me improve my fencing. And the first few lessons, it was a bit confusing, and I did have a few times where I started doubting myself and thinking, am I really up for the challenge? Because there were a few lessons that I had where it wasn't that my technique was wrong, but it was more like my strategy needed to be improved, my distance, my timing, other elements of the game that I hadn't really considered while in South Africa, that needed to be improved while I was in America. So that did take quite a lot of adapting, and I did have to change my fencing style a little bit. Actually, a little bit is more of an understatement. I did have to change my fencing style quite a bit. I would say that the fencing style that I had before worked in South Africa to an extent. I was able to make top 8 at some senior national competitions, so it worked. But in America, where the level is much higher, I needed to adapt, and I needed to really level up my game. So it did require a lot of patience on my end as well, just to trust the process and trust my coaches, because the lessons felt different from what I had been used to in South Africa. The training felt different, so I just needed to trust that obviously they know what they're doing. They're skilled coaches. Once I kind of started adapting to it, though, I noticed a considerable improvement in the way I fenced and in the confidence of my fencing. I was able to understand the game in ways that I hadn't before. And I was just able to bring in new elements to my game that made me feel like more of a complete fencer, that I could switch up and adapt when necessary. So I still have a bit of my old fencing style from when I first arrived at Harvard. It's still there. I feel like that is who I am as a fencer, but I've kind of completed it more. I've expanded it, and so that way I'm able to fence a large variety of opponents and feel comfortable.
Are you managing to use your old style as a surprise against, obviously you're fencing against really good fences,
Yes.
but does it surprise them? Does it confuse them? Are you able to sell them a technique and they go, oh, I didn't expect that?
So, yes. I would say the funny thing was my first competition for the Hub team. It was a bit of a surprise for everyone, kind of how well I did on the first day, because by that time I was still fencing the same way I would in South Africa. I didn't have that much extra training. I didn't adapt too much by then already. So I was just fencing the way I would here. And there was we had to fence some of the lower level universities first. We didn't fence any big universities, so it wasn't too much of a challenge. But I just remember there were a few times where I did a move that you don't really see from a lot of American fencers, where I did something with the way I would contort my body or something, or get out the way, that did get me a few victories that a lot of people weren't expecting me to get, that I wasn't myself expecting to get.
So everyone was surprised.
Everyone was surprised. I must be honest. It was quite funny to me. But then on that same competition on day 2, we then had to fence some of these higher level universities that have really good fences. And I tried the same thing.
What are those universities?
So that one university was, I would say Stanford was a challenge, but the biggest one was definitely Ohio State University. They're a very good, not in our conference, they're not in our side of the conference, luckily, but they are a very good team. Definitely not a team that we should underestimate. So I tried fencing the same way I had on day 1, and it just didn't work. It did not work, and that's when I kind of knew that I needed to expand my game. I needed to add variety and just improve on certain things that I had kind of neglected. So now what I do is when I do fence, when I was fencing at regionals, my last competition at the Northeast Regionals, I kind of used a bit of both. I would assess who my opponent was, I'd assess what was working, what I felt comfortable in, and I just, with that variety of technique and elements to my game, I was able to pick out what could work the best. And I actually ended up doing a lot better than I was expecting myself, and also to my coach's surprise, I also did quite well. So yeah.
In America, there is a lot more opportunity to fence, a lot more frequently. Now, the question that I'd like to ask, and I'm sure all the audiences would be interested to know, how frequent are the travels in fencing and compare that to South Africa? So on average, let's say per month, how many competitions would you get in a month's time or 2 months' time in SA compared to America?
Sure. So I'll start in South Africa. Due to multiple reasons, we unfortunately only have 3. We used to have 4, but now we only have 3 nationals a year. So we only have to that's going to be Cape Town, Joburg, Johannesburg, and I think there's one in Bloemfontein, if I'm not mistaken. But yes, so it's a bit of traveling there, but it's only 3 times a year. And for your provincials, that's not more than an hour drive away, and you'll have a provincial maybe once every 2 months. So we don't get that much competition in South Africa, which on one hand, on a financial side, makes sense, but in terms of performance-wise, we need competitions. Fencers need competitions. It's all good and well to do some training, but without competition experience, you're training for very little. It becomes futile at the end of the day. So we need competition. So that's why I was really happy when I got to the US. There were quite a few competitions where the first half of the season, our season runs from middle of October to end of March. The first couple months, October to December, not that many competitions, probably 2, 3, and some of them are in the Boston area. The Harvard team, our first one, we did this thing where we went to California as more of a fun first trip, if that makes sense. Obviously, we did fence, but it was more an experience just to get everyone, excited about the season ahead. So that was quite a bit of traveling. We did take a plane flight there. That was a 6-hour plane flight from Boston to California. So that was quite a bit of traveling, and we did spend the weekend in San Diego and Los Angeles. So I was able to see California for the first time. That was amazing. But But then...
What made it amazing?
I mean, again, just seeing a new place, but also it was nice. It's a very different style of city. Boston's your typical like metropolis with a river and an ocean if you drive far enough. Whereas Los Angeles, San Diego, it's got mountains, the beaches, these large, like, it kind of reminded me of Cape Town. Like there's large houses, residential areas, so, but also just, yeah, it just reminded me of like the Cape Town of America, basically. So that was great to see. And
how different are the fences in California compared to Boston area?
I mean, I would say at a collegiate level, it's kind of hard to tell because in every college you're going to have people from all over America. So I was fencing Californian teams, like the University of San Diego was one of them. So I would fence Californian teams, but they consist of fences from kind of all over America. So I wouldn't say there's necessarily a Californian style. I feel like in every American club, according to every American coach or whichever coach of any club there was going to be a certain style, and there are some overlapping things, but I wouldn't say there's specific to any region.
Do you have, just to interject there,
Sure.
do you have, or did you have an experience or experiences where you had a bout and a person comes to you afterwards, subsequently after the bout, and they go, well, that was different. Your style is very different. Where are you from? Do you have...
I'm trying to think. I don't think I had necessarily one where if I had won, my opponent would come up to me, because obviously if you lose, you know, you kind of just want to stick to yourself, think about why you lost, and kind of hope you see them again next time, get some revenge kind of thing. But there were a few times where, like, I mean, yes, I did lose, and my opponent would like come up to me and be like, you know, I wear the South African flag on my breeches, on my uniform, and they'd be like, I've never seen that before. Like, that's interesting. Where are you from? Or how are you at Harvard? So I can remember one instance now where I was at regionals fencing this one fencer from Yale, and I can tell he was an experienced fencer, and we fenced twice. The first time I beat him, but then the second time he made sure to beat me. But he did come up to me and he did say, you know, like, you fence really well, and that was a really great compliment to me from an established American Ivy League fencer. So that was a really great compliment to me. So I would say that. So I mean, and just if you don't mind, like, just back to the traveling thing.
Back to
just the latter half of the season was where it kind of just became quite intense, where we were having like a competition that we had to travel for. It kind of, I'm not sure if I'm right, but it kind of felt like once every 3 weekends kind of thing. And what made it difficult wasn't the fact that we had to fence, it was the fact that it was the entire weekend away from campus. So catching up work, doing work on the bus was a challenge, but you kind of had to do it, otherwise you would fall way too behind on your classes. But we traveled to California first semester. The second semester we went to places in Massachusetts, in the Massachusetts area, Boston obviously, but then also Pennsylvania. So that was, yeah, I've been to a few different states now, so that's been great.
Even though you have this team that's all together, there's still such a rivalry because you are competing against each other. Does it come through, the frustration, the anger, the feeling of, I'm gonna get you? Do you get that from your teammates?
I would say I haven't seen anything, like any serious competition. There's obviously some playful things, like, you know, in training you kind of just want to show that, like, you know, you beat this guy, you beat that guy, or that kind of thing. I wouldn't say there's anything serious. In terms of like playing against each other, like competing against each other, we only really have to compete against each other at regionals and at national champs. That's the only times you actually do fence each other in a competition. For the most part, we're competing as a team against another team, so we don't actually fence each other. So there's very little like, animosity that kind of grows between fencers trying to prove that they're better than the other person.
No one comes in as an alpha male and said, like, I'm the man and you all follow me.
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think there's naturally, there's going to be some people that are natural leaders that kind of think that they know that their way is, a good way to go. And so every now and then you kind of have to have these debates of like, I agree with you, but that kind of thing. But I wouldn't say there was anyone who was very dominant the entire season. I think, like, especially we have 4 captains, 2 women's captains, 2 men's captains. And I mean, this last season, they did a pretty good job of letting each one of them have what made them a captain and just letting them have the space to speak and to, have their influence on the team. I would say in every squad, you have the foil squad, the epee squad, the saber squad. In every squad, there is going to be a natural leader, whether it's like the most experienced fencer or the strongest fencer, there's going to be that person. But there's just a thing of like they're trying to lead the team during the competition, making sure everyone's in the right headspace and has the right support to do the best that they can when they fence. So no, I wouldn't say there's much animosity there.
Let's work it in reverse now. Well, you went to Boston, to Harvard, and you have the fencers who might get surprised because you have a different style, but now coming back to South Africa, have you managed to catch your teammates off guard and lure them into traps and go like, oh, this worked? Has that happened now?
I mean, I haven't done any formal competition. I'd be curious to see if it does happen in a formal competition, but definitely at my old club.
Will you have a chance to do it in a formal competition before you go back?
Unfortunately not. I thought I was going to because there usually is an August national. Unfortunately this year the August national was moved to May or February, so I wasn't able to make it. So unfortunately no proper formal competition. I might be able to go to a provincial if there is one, but provincials aren't super serious. It's kind of just an opportunity to again train. But I mean, I would say in training, I have very experienced teammates, Pasha Tushla, Harry Sena, just to name 2, Tsepo Pikisi. All of them have been to numerous like African championships or world championships. Harry Sena qualified for the Olympics, Olympian, bronze medalist, African champs. So, very decorated South African fencers. And I would say I would struggle against them before I left. I was happy just to get a few points. This time around, though, I feel like I'm actually able to compete. There were a few times where I feel like they were surprised by the things I was able to do upon coming back. So that was nice to see for me. And yeah, there are a few times where I'll get the quick victory in, and it'll feel good. Like, because for me, it's just a reflection of the fact that I am improving as a fencer. So it's nice for me to see.
That validates your hard work at Harvard.
Of course. But I would say also on the other end, I don't think they ever get annoyed when I do get some points off them or beat them. I would say it's more a thing of like, they're actually happy because we need more experienced, skilled fencers in South Africa, and they want good training partners. So if I'm able to...
Did they, just interject, did they stop you and go, what was that?
Yes, no, they do sometimes. And I've gotten a few questions of how I train at Harvard, because they want to learn a few tips, I guess. But yeah, so there are a few times where I can tell they want to learn from me as well, because now I have something to offer. So that also feels quite empowering.
What's the biggest lesson you learned from spending a year so far at Harvard, and not just in fencing, studying, changing environment, taking everything into consideration?
Okay. So from my fencing and from my studying, basically.
Exactly.
Okay.
Taking everything into consideration.
I would say biggest lesson, it's generic, so I'm not going to deny that, but it is just a confidence thing where it's being, and this is something I've also learned from fencing, but it's being able to trust yourself and be confident in your abilities to the extent that you can see anyone, whether they're a top-level fencer or a top-level academic who's your classmate or whatever, like you feel that you're not inferior to them, that you can compete with them, that you can be on their level. And it took a while for me, at least in fencing and in my academics as well. There were a few times where, in class, I would be talking about a certain topic in biology, and I'd have some friends that had covered the topic numerous times before, and they've clearly mastered it, and I've never seen the thing before in my life. I remember vividly in my first bio lecture, there was a structure of DNA that I'd never seen before, and everyone else kind of was like, oh, we did this in grade 10. So there was a bit of things where I had to I was a bit intimidated a little bit, but then it was just the thing of I got into Harvard. I trust in the fact that I am smart enough. I deserve to be there. So just trusting myself that I will get there. I put in the work. I put in a little bit of extra work that maybe they don't need to. But if I just work hard, dedicate myself to it, and if I want to be on the level, I can. So I ended up getting the same grades as most of my really intelligent classmates. So that was great for me to see. And then on the fencing side, yeah, there were a few times where I stepped onto the piste and I saw this fencer who my teammates had told me, had won this national championship and had done this and achieved this and went to this, and I get intimidated. And there were a few times where I don't think I lost because I was fencing. I lost because I'm a worse fencer, but I lost just because in my head I thought I was a worse fencer. And then my coaches and my teammates had to just tell me, it doesn't matter. The moment you put your mask on, it's just another fencer, and you deserve to be on that piece with them, to fight for them. And if you want to win, and you have the will to win, you can. There's nothing stopping you. You just have to believe in that. So I would say that's the biggest lesson I've learned from Harvard. It's just knowing that you don't have to feel inferior to anyone else, because if you put in the work, you can be on anyone's level.
There's a story with the whole no mind experience. And it's a story that's been told in a classical martial arts setup in Japan in ancient times, where, well, not so ancient, maybe we're talking medieval ages, but you have a story where you have a samurai. He's a quite experienced samurai, but one of those guys, he has a lot of mental noise, too many thoughts, too many questions, too many uncertainties. And he's squaring off with another, presumably samurai. He doesn't know from his perspective. Maybe the clothes give it away. I can't even remember those kind of details with the story. But the central part of the story is the other guy is holding a sword in a different way to the way he's holding. And he starts going, is he a samurai? Is he better than me? How much experience does it have? And while all of this is going through his head, the other guy kills him. And he gets killed by a worse off samurai fighter. The idea of the story is no mind.
Yeah.
You step in there and you have the best square off you can have, and you react to what comes your way. You let your skill speak for itself.
Yes.
And that's the one of the biggest things that we learn as we talk about martial arts, and fencing is essentially a martial art. Martial means military, and in olden days that's all we had is a sword, and if you don't have a sword you might have a knife or empty hand fight. That's all. So the story was there to teach not just newbies but experienced fighters, samurais, remind them to keep the noise levels down and have the best experience they can have, knowing that they might die.
Yeah.
Alex, what is next for you? You're going back end of August 2025. Yes. You're going to be starting your second year at Harvard. What are your sights set on?
So it's a few different things. I wouldn't say it's anything major. From an academic point of view, I'm definitely going into the hardest. Everyone says second year, first semester is the hardest semester you're going to have at Harvard, because you start going into your more advanced courses. I was doing well with the introductory courses, but now I'm going into advanced stuff. So I'm taking an organic chemistry course that I'm very not keen on. but I will have to make the most of it. So from an academic point of view, I know it's going to be a challenge, but I just want to make sure that I'm grounded, that I've learned the right habits over my first year, making sure I get enough sleep, I focus in my lectures, I make the most of the time I can, just so that I feel comfortable and with the challenge, that I feel like I'm doing everything I can to tackle it the best. So that's kind of like my academic goals. From a fencing point of view, I really just want to, again, like pick up where I left off. For my intercollegiate career, for my Harvard fencing career, I've kind of shown myself now how far I can go, and I know that I can push a bit harder now that I've adapted. So I will try get more lessons, do some more training, do some more personal training, that kind of thing, and really give it my all in this season now to see how far I really can go with my fencing now that I've seen what everything's about, what it's all about. And then from like an international fencing point of view, I want to slowly but surely get more comfortable in the international arena. Earlier this year I went to Morocco for my first senior World Cup, and I did not do very well, but it was my first senior competition, and it was a great experience because I was able to see the level that I need to be in order to compete. And now that I've experienced that, now that I have I did have a few losses there, but with those losses there were a lot of lessons. So with those lessons and things that I've learned, I want to maybe go to like 1 or 2 more internationals across this semester and the next, and again, see how far I can go with my competition, with my skill set.
Okay, well, wishing you good luck.
Thank you.
And may you come from strength to strength into your fencing skill training. And next time you come here, you can surprise even Harry and Tishla and the rest of the team.
Yeah.
Give them stress.
That's all. I'll try my best. I promise.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Really enjoyed the interview,
yes.
And let's do another one next year when you're back.
It was my pleasure. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Thanks.